Welcome to Between the Whistles. I'm your host, Joe Chap, and today we are talking about the Michigan season preview because they play Saturday against Eastern Carolina Pirates, and I think that Michigan is one of the toughest teams to gauge in terms of how good they really are. Because when you look at Michigan, they are returning a starting quarterback, which most of the top five cannot say. They're returning two top level running backs. They're returning most of their offensive line, and they gained one in the portal. This team is built to win a national championship. That's the bottom line. And anything but a national championship would kind of be a disappointment because this team has the horses. They have a little bit, there's things that they could get better at. There's, especially at that second cornerback level, you're looking at who can be opposite of Will Johnson, but we're going to get to that in this season preview. But if you're new to the channel, please subscribe to Between the Whistles Detroit. We're going to have a lot of Michigan content going forward. So if you are new to the channel and you like this video, at the end you can subscribe. So let's start. Obviously, Jim Harbaugh in 2020 was going through a rough time, and a lot of fans didn't want him at Michigan because they thought that he was getting overpaid. He comes back in 2021. They win the Big Ten. Their only blemish on their Big Ten record was Michigan State. They come back in 2022. They go unbeaten the whole season until they faced TCU. They shouldn't have lost to TCU, but in 2021, let's be honest, no one was going to beat that Georgia team, and that was the reality. So when you look at that coaching structure, obviously Michigan has gotten better in the last 2 years. That's obvious. But one thing that we have noticed is that the talent level, especially on the offense, has gotten a lot better. The quarterback play has gotten better. The running back play has gotten better. And I think that's what Michigan has made their money on. If you look at throughout Michigan history, they have been a better team when they can run the ball and do play action. So let's look at the portal that they obviously had some departures like Cade McNamara, Taylor Upshaw, Andrell Anthony, R.J. Moten, and Eric Hall, but they get Ernest Hausman, Ladarius Henderson, Josiah Stewart, AJ Barner, and Miles Hinton. Out of all those ones, I obviously love the Ladarius Henderson one because at one point, Ladarius Henderson was a guy who could potentially go put his name in the NFL draft. He decided to go to Michigan, which is a good thing because obviously there's always things that you can work on as an offensive lineman. But I love the Josiah Stewart uh, portal ad from Michigan because I think he's going to be a very underrated player. I think part of my worry with Michigan is can they rush the passer? If they can rush the passer, this would be a great guy to kind of throw that into the equation. I think Josiah Stewart's going to be a really really good player. So you look at the portal report, there's not many players that they've lost that are big time players. Obviously, you look at Andrew Anthony, but he didn't play to the level that you would expect as a wide receiver. Obviously, Cornelius Johnson and Roman Wilson have really taken reign over the wide receiver position, and there's some pretty good wide receivers coming in as well. When you look at Cademan McNamara and Eric All, when you look at them transferring to Iowa, obviously you go, man, it would be nice to have Eric All. But when you look at the tight end position for Michigan, they have a pretty damn good tight end in Colston Loveland. I'm a really big Colston Loveland fan. I think he's going to be really great this year. We'll get to that and more on the Michigan season preview. But there's obviously some NFL eyes on Michigan. You got JJ McCarthy who could potentially jump to the NFL. You have Ladarius Henderson that could potentially jump to the NFL. Zach Zenner, Trevor Keegan, Drake Nugent, Blake Corum, Donovan Edwards, Junior Colston, and then you have Chris Jenkins. Now, will every one of these players be drafted? I put a pretty good degree on it. I think there's some other players that aren't in this graphic that can potentially be drafted. Jim Harbaugh said that there would be 20 players drafted for Michigan. I don't know if that's the case, but if that was the case, that'd be pretty bad because obviously losing that much talent is very hard to recover from. But I think that Michigan has a really damn good team. I like JJ McCarthy as a quarterback. I like him more than most people. I think JJ McCarthy is a total winner. And I think that like if I was to do my pre-draft rankings right now, it'd be Drake May, Caleb Williams at number one and number two. Number three would probably be Penix, and number four would be JJ McCarthy for me because I think JJ McCarthy has so much upside and so much potential that he could really put this team into oblivion with the way that he plays. I love JJ McCarthy. I think that they haven't used his arm enough. I think with the emergence of a guy named Colston Loveland, this offense can go to the stratosphere because you have a great offensive line, you have great running backs, and then you add in the fact that you might have one of the top 5 quarterbacks in college football, that is a very good thing. So if you are a Michigan fan, there's a lot to look forward to. Let's take a look back though at the stats from last year. Obviously, across the board in 2022, they were just absolutely dynamite. Offensive and defensive points per game, they were sixth in the nation. Red zone percentage in on the offense, ninth in the nation. Passing yards per game, 79th in the nation. I would like to see that bump up a little bit. Rushing yards per game, 238.9. That was seventh in the nation. And time of possession, fifth in the nation. When you lead time of possession, you are going to win a lot of football games. Now, you look at the defense, the opponent red zone scoring percentage was 82.3. That was 50th in the nation. If they can improve that, they're going to be an absolute impossible team to beat, because when you're allowing teams to score less in the red zone, they're usually kicking field goals, and you're usually winning that game if they're kicking field goals like that. Opponent passing yards per game, 194.8, 18th in the nation. Opponent rushing yards per game, 97.9. That was fifth in the nation. Their opponent time of possession was 43.6. That was fifth in the nation. When you look at all those stats, it tells me right now that Michigan is going to be a really good team, and they bring back a lot of people like Will Johnson, like Rod Moore, like Junior Colston. There's a lot of players from that defense that are going to be back. The only issue you can kind of see is like who's going to be that second cornerback opposite of Will Johnson. That's the number one thing. And you look at the opposite of Will Johnson, like Will Johnson's good. I think he's going to be a really, really good corner. I think he's going to be one of the best, nation's best, in my opinion. But when you look at this Michigan team, I think that they have a lot of things that they can unlock potential. When you look at this team in totality with the defense, the offense, there's no doubt that the Michigan Wolverines are going to be a team that should beat everybody on that schedule. Because when we look at the schedule and the betting, here's the thing. This schedule is kind of poopy pants when you look at the first until maybe October 21st. That's when maybe the schedule will kind of tick up, because I think Michigan State's going to be better than most people think. I think Purdue is going to be better than most people think. I think Penn State and Maryland. I think Penn State's definitely going to be as better than people think. Maryland and Ohio State. That's where the schedule begins, because you look at the first, you know, couple games, beat ECU, UNLV, Bowling Green State University, Rutgers, Nebraska, Minnesota, Indiana. Like, which team scares you there? At least when you get to Michigan State, you know that Michigan State is going to play you tough. You know that Purdue is going to play tough. You know that Penn State's going to play tough. You know Maryland's going to play tough. You know Ohio State's going to play tough. So you have tough teams on the schedule. They just come backloaded at the end, and they're I say like three of those teams: Michigan State, Penn State, Ohio State. They're very physical teams. So we haven't saw Purdue yet with their new coaching staff. So it'll be interesting to see what their philosophy on the game is. So for Michigan to win the national title, it's plus 850. I would take that all day, every day. I put money on that bet, because I think that they're going to win that game. Over under 10.5 wins for Michigan is, for over it's minus 148. For under it's plus 150. Big Ten championship winner 180. I would definitely put money on that. And Big Ten East winner, which if you win the Big Ten East, you're probably going to win the Big Ten championship. So I parlay that together and put yourself in a pretty damn good position with the betting circle. So I like Michigan that much where I would parlay that all together, because I think Michigan is going to win the Big Ten. I think they are going to win the national championship. I think that they are the team to beat in the college football, because they have the quarterback, they have the players that can help them win. And when you look at Michigan in totality, where is the weakness on that team? You really can't identify one weakness, maybe in the back end and the secondary on the second cornerback level, but there's no perfect team in college football. And if Michigan could just use their passing game to maybe the Ohio State game was really telltale. Okay, they started destroying Ohio State when they started hitting those long deep passes, and with the running backs that you have at Michigan, you can absolutely dominate teams from the word get go. Obviously, early in the season, JJ McCarthy struggled hitting the deep ball, but as the season went on, and as he grew into his quarterback movement, he started to get a lot more comfortable. He started making crisp passes. He started making these good throws. And when you look at Michigan, even against TCU, they should have won that game. They should have won that game. They outsmarted themselves a little bit, but they should have won that game. Michigan, I think, when you look at that TCU game, there was no way they should have lost that game they were the better team, and they just kind of gave it away. That year against Georgia, you were playing one of the best teams in college football, so you weren't going to beat them, and you weren't gonna come close to them because they were one of the all-time best college football teams. So when we look at surprising players, okay, for me, I love Colston Loveland. I think he's going to be a legitimate player who is going to make some big strides in 2023. I think he's going to be JJ McCarthy's top weapon. And I think everything you saw from Luke Schoonmaker last year, I think you're going to get more out of Colston Loveland. I think he's just a totally athletic freak tight end, and he's going to give you some good. If you're a Michigan fan, he's going to give you some touchdowns. Obviously, he's going to be great in the red zone. On the defensive side, I think edge Josiah Stewart is going to be the key surprising player because I think that he's going to be able to rush the passer and make teams kind of think when they are going back to pass. When you go back to pass against Michigan in recent years, you've had to deal with Aiden Hutchinson, David Ojabo. Last year, there was a couple guys that were just coming out of the woodwork, but you got McGregor this year, you got Josiah Stewart. This could be a good year for Michigan, especially with the two defensive ends. And if they can get a pass rush with some of the players that they've got coming in, they're going to be really, really good. I think that they can unlock more potential with these things that I'm about to say. Let's open up the pass game, guys. One of the things about Michigan, if they open up the pass game, they will be a very, very tough team to beat because when you look at Michigan, they are a running team. But if you could use the play action to kind of get people to bite on the play action, you're going to hit players like Roman Wilson and Cornelius Johnson, who have shown that they can be deep threats down the field. I like both. I like the ability to use the run game as a pass, to kind of supercharge your pass game. I think the pass game, if JJ McCarthy connects on all those throws, like you're destroying teams from the word get go. Like you're not gonna deal with any of those teams. So my second one is use Edwards and Corum on the field at the same time. I think this would be very important because I think Edwards is a better receiver than Corum. But if you put him on the field at the same time, this could be a really dynamic duo because teams are going to have to respect Blake Corum running the ball, but they're going to have to respect Donovan Edwards coming out of the backfield in a passing down. This is where you don't outsmart yourself. Use your best players. Don't make those stupid plays like the Philly special at the goal line. That was what cost them against TCU. And I think they're a better team than they showed. And obviously, with the way that they played against TCU and that total outsmarting themselves in the Fiesta Bowl, that really hurt their chances at winning that game. On the defense, get better in the red zone. Obviously, you're 50th in the nation. You got to get better in the red zone and force more turnovers. Those are the two things I see from the stats last year that I think that Michigan can get better. And Will Johnson, Rod Moore, you got some guys in the backfield that can in the secondary that can absolutely make plays. It's time for them to make plays because this is a team that could win a national championship, no doubt about it. When you play those teams like Penn State, when you play Ohio State, you're gonna have to deal with these guys absolutely just throwing the ball downfield, and you're gonna have to make some plays because you're not it's not totally a talent disadvantage from Michigan's perspective or Penn State's perspective or Ohio State perspective. They're all talented in their own ways, but I think Michigan could definitely be a team that could beat everyone in the Big Ten. So when we look at this Big Ten team, we look at the Michigan Wolverines and we look at how are they going to win this season against everyone in the Big Ten. I think it starts with JJ McCarthy. I think it starts with Donovan Edwards. I think it starts with Blake Corum. When you look at Blake Corum and Donovan Edwards, I think that they're legitimate weapons that are a lot of teams don't have the luxury of having. Okay. Let's just be honest. A lot of teams don't have the luxury of having two great running backs. You look at Penn State, they might have two great running backs. We don't know yet. They just started playing their games. But I like this team. I think that you have the most talented quarterback in college football, one of the most talented quarterbacks in the country, with JJ McCarthy. I think Caleb Williams, I think Drake May, I think Michael Penix. They're all talented and they all are dynamic in their own little ways. I think it's time for JJ McCarthy to grow a little bit, and if he grows a little bit, Michigan will be basically unstoppable in their Big Ten quest to win a national championship. So my final verdict: I got 11-1. I think they're going to trip up along the way, but I still think they're going to win the Big Ten championship and go to the national championship. Um, I think their best offense player is going to be Colston Loveland. I love Colston Loveland. I think he's going to be an elite tight end this year. Everyone looks at Brock Bowers in Georgia, but I think they're going to look at Colston Loveland like they looked at like Michael Mayer at Notre Dame last year. Just a great tight end, and it's going to be a red zone threat that J.J. McCarthy can use and abuse. Best defensive player, I think it's going to be Will Johnson. I think Will Johnson's really going to have a big year in 2023. I've loved watching him play, but he is getting better as the years go on. So it'd be great to see Will Johnson make some strides as a defensive back. As one of the questions that Michigan has is their cornerback opposite of Will Johnson. If Will Johnson is great, that cornerback is going to get a lot of run at with the passing game. So that would be interesting. I think the best freshman will be Inau Ete, who is a 5-star recruit, who is an edge player. I think he can be really, really good. I think there was a lot of teams that were in on him, and they are all elite teams. So you're getting the best player possible with Inau Ete. So we look at Michigan. We look at how they're doing. We look at the way that they're winning. The last 2 years, the way that they kind of changed their course. Obviously, Cade McNamara in the first year, they showed that they were more of a running team. I think if you look at the stats again, we're going to bring it back up. I think if they get better in the passing game, they're going to be a really tough team to beat. I'm not really worried about the rest of the stuff because I think that the key to this team is get more passing yards. You can run out the clock. Obviously, with the time of possession, they have controlled the time of possession. So, all in all, when we look at Michigan, this is a team that should win a national championship. There you go. It'd be a disappointment if Michigan doesn't win the national championship. If Michigan plays the way that they're expected to play, they will be one of the top teams in the country. Again, they will be in the running for the national championship again. And it's up to Jim Harbaugh to do one thing. The last 2 years, Jim Harbaugh has shown a propensity and throughout his tenure at Michigan to not capitalize in bowl games. This is Jim Harbaugh's awakening right now. Because if he cannot win with this team, with the talent that they have, it'd be absolutely just disgusting because there's no team that you've seen throughout college football that has had a quarterback, the only good quarterback in the country, with a team that's good enough to win a national championship. And I'm not counting USC and North Carolina in this because their teams are not as good as Michigan. I'm counting Georgia. I'm counting Alabama, Ohio State, Penn State. All of them are bringing in new quarterbacks. You're the only team that is bringing back a quarterback that is returning as a starter. Keep that in mind. I think Michigan's going to be good. It depends on this whole year is going to depend on what happens in the playoffs because this team is good enough to win the national championship. They should win the national championship. And if they don't win the national championship, it's a total failure from the word go. So if you're a Michigan fan, put your expectations high because this is a really good team at the University of Michigan. And I think that they will be a team that will compete in the national championship if they make the right decisions, if they coach well. We all know that Jim Harbaugh will be suspended for the first 3 games, but that doesn't matter. They're playing absolutely the children of the week. Look at you play ECU, UNLV, and Bowling Green. I mean, I could win those games. So if you're Michigan, your season starts October 21st at East Lansing. That's when the season starts. The rest of it, it's preseason basically. So we will see you in more Michigan videos that we will have. Obviously, I'm going to be a little more high strung. I had an interesting day. So I will see you in the next Michigan video. Please subscribe if you like this content. We're going to bring out more Michigan content as we move on. So please subscribe, and we will see you in the next video. Have a good one.